As always, don't forget to check the video description down below for the best price on parts and tools I use in today's video. Today, just like diagnose videos, there's some diagnosing tools. Also, recently partnered with a school. If you know how the system on a car works, you can figure it out and fix it. Check that down below. We also have repair manuals. It's a store down there, guys. It's a store. Now we got done with the plug. Let's go ahead and figure out how to figure out this no start on this 2005 Hyundai Sonata. So today, I got a call on a no start for this 2005 Hyundai Sonata. I want to do something fun, y'all. When I do these diagnosis videos, pause the video, comment down below what you think the no start was. Just a fun little game we could play. Okay, so there are 5 basic things that could be causing a no start. This is a no crank no start. So if you're watching this video in hopes of figuring out your crank no start, this ain't gonna help you. You can search Fixbook crank no start, and there's a video. A lot of these cars are different, but pretty much the procedure for figuring out what's wrong is going to be the same across the board, but I'll give you vehicle specifics on the specific vehicles. So anyways, what we're going to check first thing, easiest stuff first, out of the 5 things: battery connections or wiring or fuses or relays, starter, alternator, or ignition switch. Those are kind of the basic things, and the first thing we always check is the battery because it's simple to check, and let's do that. Alright, so this is how we're going to check our battery. And basically, you got this little tester. You're just going to take the little alligator clips, connect it to the battery. And this, I have a perfect example. That was what was wrong with our car today, of this battery. But anyways, I'll show you that here in a second. So you hook it up. It's going to tell you 12.6. Hit enter. 600 cranking amps. This one is supposed to be 700 cold cranking amps. So you'd set to 700. You just go up. 700, close enough. It really doesn't even matter as long as you know the cranking amps. Well, actually it will, because it'll change what it does as far as fail or okay. But anyways, this one tests at 372. This was enough to start the car. On this battery, it's just an old battery I carry around to jump cars and switch out with. But let's also look at the battery, because not only would this battery have failed, but if we look at these terminals, look at that, y'all. That is a no start right there, because with all that stuff, this side wasn't as bad. It looks really bad, but you still have a lot of metal to connect to the connector. That's the big issue. Right there, look at that. You don't have a whole lot of metal connecting because it's just got all that corrosion there. So that is a problem. You can also grab a hold of the connector and try and spin it. This one I had to kind of just stick it on there, so when I would, it'd be on there good, because the connector is also broken on this one. This one you just try and move it, and if you see it move, like this one's moving right here, that's also a good indicator of a no start, because if it's not on there tight enough, it'll lose the connection. A lot of times what'll happen with something like that, you turn the key and it'll go click, and then all your power will go out. And if you come out here and twist it, all your power comes back on. You try and turn it again, it either tries to start or it'll click and do the same thing again. So that's what's kind of going on with that. Now, the starter, let's do alternator next. All right, alternator. First indicator that you have about alternator is your battery light comes on in the car. I don't know why it's a battery light, because it's always an alternator when the battery light comes on. Also, the car cuts off on you. That'd be a second thing. If the car never cut off on you, and you try and start it and it's acting like a bad battery, it's probably a bad battery. If it cut off on you and it's acting like a bad battery, that is a very good indication it's a bad alternator. And the other thing we could do to check it, this one is not going to be easily checkable. It's down there. But that is your alternator. Well, I'm wearing a nice coat. I don't want to get all dirty. But see that boot right there? If you pop that boot off, there will be a nut, and that is the main wire for your alternator. Now you could actually even probe that wire, because that wire is like sitting like right up here. You just probe it. But you can start the car, jump the car, and make sure you have a charging voltage coming off of that wire. Your wire, or your charging voltage, should be between 13.5 and 14.5 volts. Initially, and this is the tool you're going to want to use. Okay, so initially you can check it right off the battery, right? If you see no charge coming right off the battery, we know, hey, the battery is not being charged, right? But, and here, I'll just stick that in there, stick that right there, just set it on there, and we'll see. I'm sorry. Dang it, guys, I don't have my head mount today. But anyways, that's that. It's reading 12.5 volts. So you jump the car and then hook this up. If it's reading battery voltage, if this still read 12.5 or probably less because it's now drawing on the battery, then you know, hey, the battery's not charging. But there could be like an inline fuse or some kind of fuse blown. So by checking, take your negative here, all right, and then take your positive all the way over here and hit the nut on the end of that rubber boot. So that's your rubber boot right there. You just grab it, pull up on it, and there'll be a nut. And you hit that, and if you do have 13.5, 14.5 volts coming off that, then you know, hey, guess what? The alternator is working. We just have a fuse blowing somewhere or a bad wire or something. All right, the last thing we're gonna do, we're gonna rule out the starter and the ignition coil. So it's probably gonna be one of these 5 things. And oh, another quick thing, you can also, if you have a power probe, you can hook the alligator clips up to the power probe. You don't have to like try and hold one wire on the battery and one wire on the thing. Whenever you touch something with the tip of the power probe, it will tell you what kind of volts is on it, or if it's a ground or whatever. It's like both those leads in one, kind of, which is nice and convenient. A link below in the video description for a power probe. Those are amazing. I use them almost every day. Okay, the starter or the ignition switch. I'm gonna throw up a picture right now of the starter location on this thing. I feel sorry if you have to change the starter, because from what I could see, it's back. You're probably looking at the picture right now, but it's back behind that alternator. So it's somewhere back there, and I saw them. They took the. It looks like they had the intake manifold off. So, but if you get to that and you're wanting to check it, what you do? There's a big fat wire coming off the starter, and you know we can check that from the fuse relay box. If you find, I'll try and throw up a picture of which relay it is or whatever, but you can take the relay out, figure out which is the control side, which is the power side, and then find out which side goes to the actual solenoid. You can hit that with your power probe from right there, and if it spins over, you know, hey, it's a bad, or no, the starter is actually okay. But if it does not crank, then you know, hey, the starter's bad. Now, if that wasn't the case, say the starter was good, you hit it and it spins over, right? Then you can look at the control side of the wire, and it'd be nice to have a wiring diagram. You can either Google one. Down below we have repair manuals that have wiring diagrams. You can click on the link and get one of those, and then you can see what I'm talking about. But on the control side, there's going to be one side that's coming like from whatever's responsible for doing it. When you turn your key, it's going to send a control signal, and it might go through the PCM or some kind of other relay or it's like a whole bunch of places it could come from. But anyways, you're going to find the side where the control signal is coming from. Okay, you're going to put your power probe on there, have somebody turn the key to the on position. If it powers on your power probe, you know, hey, we are getting that signal also. Okay, so that would be a good ignition switch. If you turn the key on to start and you have it in the control slot, then there's no signal. Then we know, hey, maybe it's a bad ignition switch. Maybe any of those other variables that are between the ignition switch and this point, something in there is bad. Okay, this is also a good little plug place for the school. In the video description down below. If you know how all this stuff works, you can fix it. You'll know how to use wiring diagrams and stuff. I highly recommend that. Also, everything I just told you can be done on the starter. So the wire, and it'll help you rule out more stuff too, because if you have signal from right at the relay, you know it's good there. And then you go down to the little wire. There's a fat wire and a little wire. The little wire, you probe that wire and then have the person turn the key. And that will also tell you, hey, you know, I'm not getting an ignition switch signal from the little wire on the starter. So it could be there you're not getting it, up here at the relay you are getting it. Or the most common thing is if you're not getting it there, you're probably not getting it. Well, you're definitely not getting it down there, but if you're not getting it there, you're probably not getting it at the relay. You could also probe that big wire, just make sure there's power going to it, because there could be a fuse or something blown there too. Most of the stuff on something like this, I'm always going to work from the relay. I'm not going to go to the starter because it's a lot of work to get to the starter. So I do everything I just said from the relay. Again, you should see a picture of that. It may be in there, may not. But anyways, that's kind of how you rule out the ignition switch. Or another thing, if you just sit in the car and you turn the key, and when you spin it to start and it's acting like you didn't do anything, right? Or if you're spinning through accessory on start and it's not really doing anything, or it's staying the same through some of those, you'll know, hey, this looks like a bad ignition switch, because the switch is, at that point, it's failing to do what it needs to do. It's not cycling through the different positions correctly. But anyways, that's just some stuff you can check for. There's also all this stuff keeps coming to mind while I'm talking about it, but there's also a neutral safety switch sometimes. You can put the car in neutral and then try and start it. If you start up, you know, hey, probably bad neutral safety switch. There's just so much stuff. That's why if you just like know how the car works, then you can kind of just think about it, because it's a lot. It's not something you just have like this big old checklist. It's like you just kind of intuitively start to think about it and figure it out. But that is kind of the main stuff. I know there's a lot of talking, a lot of just looking at the under the hood, but hopefully now you have a much better idea of how to figure out what's going on, why your car's not starting. So if this video is of value to you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all so much for doing that, and I will see y'all next time.